Today's meeting to order. Thank you everybody for being here today, May 16th. First item we have to cover is the consent agenda for previous meeting or minutes, previous meeting, so on and so forth. Anyone like to make a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great, we can move right on into new business. So we'll run ourselves down the list here. We're probably, for anybody in attendance today, there should be agendas in the back if you'd like to pick one up for your record, or right here on this table there. What we'll do is, as we call each action item, if you'll step forward, have a seat kindly at the table, state your name and address for the record, and then go ahead and let us know about your application, and then we'll have some discussion. Thank you so much for being here. First item up is 1510 Rivermont Avenue. Hello.
Members. My name is Joan Leslie Binns, and my primary address is actually 5980 Richmond Highway in Alexandria, Virginia. And I'm here to represent my case for rebuilding some chimneys on 1510. So I will tell you, initially, before we had gotten an estimate, before we bought the property, somebody had said that basically it could be a repoint job. Subsequent to that, I've had a slater up there. I found out I have 2 water features in the attic that are coming straight down from the chimneys. And the last I heard was that the mason had assessed the chimneys, which should be rebuilt versus repointing. It was warranted on specifically on the east chimney. If you'll notice the west chimney in some of the pictures, it was a rebuild, and I can't find any historic documentation as to when that occurred. There should be a current picture. Yes, right there, where the leftmost chimney. That's completely new brick, and it wasn't built properly, in my opinion. But anyway, the gentleman said that that the infiltration of the water, the severe mortar deterioration, spalling throughout, has resulted in structural integrity is no longer sound on that particular one, the east chimney. So that's why I requested a rebuild from the roof up, both the water damage that I'm incurring every time we rain, and you can, if you look at it from the right view, you can actually see sunlight through pictures of that, through pieces of that chimney.
It's pretty straightforward. Anyone would like to make a motion?
I make a motion to approve as submitted.
Okay.
Second.
Is there any discussion, questions, comments regarding this work?
Is there any roof repair that's being done at the same time, or?
There was an administrative COA.
Okay.
And so yes, dormers are being done, slating's being done, valleys are being done.
Okay. Wow.
I expect I'll be visiting you all again shortly.
Speaking on repointing and rebuilding, that they no historic masonry and don't use Portland cement.
Don't use what, please?
Don't use Portland cement. I would hope that they're coming in to do the work on.
It's a local company, so I'll just make sure specifically that point's made.
Historic masonry is very particular about what it likes in terms of mortar.
Yes.
Good luck. It looks
Thank
good.
you so much.
The things you've been doing.
Appreciate
All
it.
those in favor?
I'm sorry.
None opposed? You're ready to go. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next up is 2108 Rivermont Avenue.
Sorry about that.
My name is Fernita May, and my home address is 189 Snowdrift Lane, Madison Heights, Virginia.
Excellent. Thank you for being here.
And first of all, I didn't know that this was so involved in what I had to do. But I did it because of safety for the people. This is a rental house for me. And I did it for the safety of the people that live there. Because Rivermont, if you don't watch yourself, you'll get hit.
Oh, yes.
And the man that lives next door, that owns the house to me, said that, you know, I can use his drive to go in there. And that has always been the way. It's been that spot has been there since I bought the house in 2001. It was not blacktopped, but I think it was tar and gravelled, but it existed. And also, there's some other features and things. The house is landlocked. I mean, this is.
Would you like me to speak to that?
Yeah, and this is my son-in-law, who's a surveyor.
My name is Phil Lotspeech, and like she said, I'm her son-in-law.
Yes.
And I work with James May and Associates in Lynchburg. And we had done what is now an unfinished survey of the property at the time that Fran, my mother-in-law, acquired it. And so I'll just share a few things with you about the property itself. Because they have looked at it, and at the time, you know, there was one gravel parking spot where she has paved, and it was accessed by permission from the adjoining landowner, the neighbor. And what she didn't tell you is that after the driveway was paved, the only way we could have permission was if we paved the parking spot in order to use it. He wouldn't allow us to do that. So with that said, if you'll take a look, I don't know if we have an extended picture of the rear of the lot.
I can pull it up on map viewer.
Okay. But the city, and I don't, forgive me, I don't know exact dates on when they did this, but they vacated the street behind all the lots in that block. So if you go down to Ash Street, which is on the far left, and you enter, then it takes you into what is part of Rivermont Park, or Riverside Park, excuse me. And you see the vacation coming there. That at one time extended all the way through.
It ends at the property next to you, per the map anyways.
Per the map, that's GIS.
Right.
As a surveyor, I'm in contention with that. But you can see that there's no
It's a
road
big
there.
valley there, is it not? That's wooded?
Well, the alley is what was
No
vacated,
valley, like it goes down.
but on all the plats that I've seen, there was a road there after the alley. Okay, whether it was opened at any time, I don't know. Okay, so in regard, we looked at this to see if it was a viable option, and it's not an option for us to
Right.
access the rear of the property.
Right.
So we looked at coming past the house, as most of the other properties do in this block. They have joint use access driveways that follow the property line all the way through. In our case, we do not have that. The access is totally on the neighbor to the parking spot, and we only have 6.9 feet on the left-hand side to get by the house, and 8 feet on the right side. So it's not viable for a drive in either scenario. The right side has an access door to an upstairs apartment as well, which further, stops us from using that side. So pretty much landlocked on the rear of the property. There's no access by vehicles whatsoever. So the width of the street, or at the frontage of the street, is 50 feet. So I think at times we needed a minimum of 4 spots, and they could squeeze 4 in there, but it's all public access out there, and there's a lot of times where other people have parked in front of the lot and they have no access. When the neighbor precluded us from using it without paving it, my mother-in-law decided to go ahead and pave it so she could have extra parking to be safer.
He was safer, but he wanted he didn't want me to come in there because he wanted his driveway to look nice.
Right, as opposed to
Yeah, and
being
he,
muddy, wet tires coming
right,
back
he didn't
out.
want to damage his asphalt, which we understood. And so
Yeah.
we decided, I say we, my mother-in-law and me as well, I guess, to go ahead and pave it so that we wouldn't damage our neighbor's property, but yet we would have access to the lot. Not to mention, the houses on Rivermont, as you know, are set back quite a ways from the street. And so it's kind of limiting the rental property as to what kind of lessees they can have at the property with all that distance they would have to traverse.
That's parking for one car, you have 2 units, so it's not giving you but so much, right?
I understand, but if one unit is upstairs, if somebody is able to use an upstairs and go up and downstairs, physically, we assume that they could traverse the distance from the street.
And the girl that lives upstairs does have some difficulty with her health. So when she goes to the store, she likes to come in there and bring her things to get them in the house. And then at that, she has to have help.
And we had looked, at other things. There's no curb cut or anything like that there
Right.
to have a driveway or anything like that.
Well,
And so rather than go that route and cost and expense wise
so I'll bring you up to speed on a few of the things on being in a historic district. Per the guidelines, one, there's not to be parking in front of the house. So you would be coming before us to ask to put a driveway or a parking spot, and we would have to refer to the guidelines which say that shouldn't be there. 2, asphalt shouldn't be there. Then your neighbor does have it. It was administratively approved incorrectly. She was under the assumption it was paved previously, but it wasn't. It was gravel. And so that's kind of a catch-22. If he's telling you that he doesn't want you to use it unless it matches his, because I get the damage side, but his shouldn't be, and technically neither should be, right?
I understand due to the other aspects that there is no access other than parking on the street.
Right.
This wouldn't even have been thought about.
That's difficult.
I'm with you. I live on Rivermont. I only have on-street parking,
Yeah,
as
same-
does she.
same
So,
time.
so I'm with you. That's what I do every day.
In regards to, the block itself, and we're just taking into account this block, not any other blocks on Rivermont. Other houses, and in this block, all the other houses have joint use driveways that run to the
On
rear.
that side of the street, I live on that block and I don't have a driveway.
Do you have, can you go to the back of your house?
There's a side street, yes, but
So you're using side street entrance.
no, I'm parking in front.
Well,
As
you
does my
know how
wife.
dangerous it is.
Right, but that's part of
I knew that when I
living on
bought the
Rivermont,
house.
yeah, that was part of the deal, when you
I
decided
bought
to live
this
in the
house
area.
in 2001,
Okay.
and I'm not sure when the Historical Commission,
In the late 80s, I think 88 is when Rivermont.
I've never been aware of it.
I'm not sure what to say. I can't respond. Your realtor should have told you or due diligence when you bought the
It was
house.
bought at auction.
Again, I guess it's due diligence then.
Are you
There's
saying
nothing I
it's in
can
the
say.
historic district at the
Yes,
time of purchase?
yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Five
What
many
was
years.
the date of the historic district?
80s something. I don't know the exact year.
Okay. All I can say is that when we read through the guidelines here, it says driveways and parking lots that are new. This one is not new.
The pavement's new.
The pavement is
There
new.
was-
but
Looking at the
space to
pictures
park
over
is
the
not.
years, you can kind of see one, kind of not, depending on what year the overhead photos you look at. But I'm with you.
That is correct. And having permission from the owner next door, which has changed hands several times,
Right.
maybe a point where we could pursue an easement of necessity there or an easement of use, prolonged use. So that is one
That's a
avenue that
zoning
we can
thing, I'm
take.
not sure. Yeah.
I can't speak to the neighbor driveway being paved. It is paved. I don't know how that was taken care of.
His driveway was
But
paved.
it is
It was gravel before it was paved.
a joint use situation there. And when the pavement went in on his side, he took care of that. And we were not notified, we were just cut off.
Is that driveway considered joint use?
It is,
It's only by his,
it is
allowing-
on the neighbor's lot
Correct.
until it gets to our parking space. And that's been there more than 20 years.
I can't say how it's designated with the city.
right.
Well, it would be designated by a surveyor as to what
With the
it
city,
is.
on the GIS typically is.
Yes.
Two things that I would bring up is that I think, at least I can think of one other circumstance where we, as a body, approved, I don't think it was ever, the job was never completed, but we approved a driveway to be, or a parking spot or a turnaround spot to be an offshoot from a driveway, but it was not to proceed past, what was it, 50% of the front of the house? It was
If
coming
it's
off
the one I'm
side.
thinking of, it was the owner's driveway and the owner's turnaround. It was never.
Correct.
there
Yeah,
was
you're
no
right.
easement
You're right.
involved.
I think this, I can see how you wanted to put this where the perceived parking spot was before. I'll just pose this to my colleagues here as well, but I guess also to the property owner, I'm trying to visualize, so leave that picture right there. Oh, go back.
This one?
Yes, so instead of having the driveway, that parking spot turn almost 90 degrees off the driveway and run right over to the sidewalk, would it be more permissible to see?
Parallel park.
Exactly, parallel park towards those trees, or whether, not so that the vehicle is parked in line with those other vehicles over there, but just on this side of the property as opposed to shooting all the way over to the sidewalk. So that when you're looking at the house, you would only see the back of the vehicle off the far left-hand side and not the entirety of the vehicle blocking half the front of the house.
I hear what you're saying, and if I may interject a little bit. It is it's not quite at a 90,
Right.
probably what, 70 degrees, 80 degrees maybe, but if you look directly across from it, you can just see a little bit of it in that picture right there. There's a little optical illusion, but on the other side is 2 parking spots in front of that other house that are paved, and they are at 90s.
Yeah, correct.
So if you have overhead view, you can see them all together.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't debate that.
And
It
we
shouldn't
were
have
not
been
trying
paved,
to, make anything, you say, less conforming.
but, Yeah.
The pavement itself is virtually unseen from Rivermont Avenue because of the angle and how far it is back. It can be obscured with shrubberies if we need to, if that's a route that we could take. Okay? We're not against that at all. We want it to be as pleasing and aesthetic as we can get it. And that's the reason we took this course, is because we thought that coming in on the neighbor's driveway, like you said, we don't want mud and debris and tearing up the pavement. And they didn't want it either.
So what are the alternative materials that are within the guidelines?
Pea gravel.
Brick, brown pea gravel, concrete, or concrete tracks. But I'd also like to note that, although this property is in the historic district, it is considered non-contributing. So just something else to note.
Can you explain what that means?
It was built after the period of significance, so while it's in the historic district, it's not considered a historic property.
It's not in the
But
dates.
it's still subject to
From-
guidelines and
Right,
review.
but it's not in the
About
dates from
material
1890 to
personally.
1915?
Yeah.
It was
That's
built
what I
in
mean.
the 60s, I
Positioning
believe.
of it is not really-
60,
It was
62.
there, not
62.
really.
Yeah.
I understand his neighbor shouldn't be paved either,
Right.
but if I was him, I would say match it, and I
Mhm.
don't want you tearing it up.
Yeah, but if there's another alternative for material that would not, that is like, you know, a hard surface, that wouldn't be leaving tracks on their driveway?
Could I put shrubs up there to hide it?
That's really not, I mean, that's saying, I'm gonna cover my house with vines, so therefore I can do whatever I want to it, which is not conforming to the guidelines, no ma'am.
But it would be attractive.
It's not conforming to the guidelines, is the thing.
It could be attractive.
Attractive is a relative.
It could be attractive, but it could also be aesthetic to the fact, you know, they don't have to be tall shrubs. Like I said, from the view of Rivermont Avenue, a short, I don't want to say running cedar, because that may be too low,
That's a non-issue.
but a
Yeah.
low growing shrub,
That's not gonna,
a foot tall would obscure the
it's
pavement.
not going to make any
It
difference
wouldn't
whatsoever.
change what the guidelines say,
Whatsoever.
just hiding it.
Michael, my point, your point is the adjacent structure had their driveway paved without a COA.
No, they had an administratively approved one. I can't, I wasn't part of the decision or the conversation, yes, roughly a year ago. But,
In
and
March
it wasn't
of
her.
2021.
But that person was under the belief that it was already paved, but it wasn't. And so they administratively approved repaving it, I guess is what you would say, but
Yeah.
it wasn't paved.
Okay. So there's no reversing that
Probably not at this point.
I don't think so.
format.
I don't believe that was a gravel driveway.
Well, even the GIS that she's pulled up from years back, it shows it, the ones of it being next to you.
I'm
You
talking
can
about
see right there,
his.
2012,
I'm talking
that's
about-
gravel,
I'm
clearly.
talking about the man next door.
2016.
Right.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about.
Mhm.
That's what I'm saying.
Well, it certainly looks like gravel there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I moved in 2019, it was
And
gravel.
there was a
up
big
until it was
tree there
paved.
at one time, and it did obscure that parking area. And you can see where they kind of had a hole and ground up.
So is cutting a new driveway not an option, or is that, okay?
Not per the guidelines, no
Okay,
ma'am.
okay.
Right.
And even if we put a new driveway, we couldn't get to the rear yard.
Right,
That's not feasible,
I understand. I don't know of a way that you could put one in.
unless we open up the road behind it, which I'm not sure. I know they vacated the alley, but I'm not sure because
It
it,
ended at the house next to you.
there's
There's,
plats that show it, that go all the way to the lot.
well, there's a carriage house where it ends.
I
The thing
understand
runs
that.
right up to it, and that's where the alley ended.
I understand, but there was an alley that was vacated and a road
Non-issue.
that was put in.
Non-issue.
Yeah,
Whether it was a paper street or not, I can't say.
fair enough.
I do know that the city has put up a gate at Riverside Park
Yeah.
where
Are
you
you
can't
struggling
go
with the
that way.
position of it, or the material, or both?
Both.
Yeah.
But, yeah. I understand their neighbors too.
Mhm.
I don't like kids, but
Mhm.
I don't know what to.
We moved under the assumption that wrong or right, that we were grandfathered. And also that,
Well, that's
You
what
know-
assumptions is why we're doing an after-the-fact
Right,
meeting,
that's correct.
so,
and also the fact that we didn't have any other choice.
there's always a choice,
Well,
so,
yeah.
that's what we're discussing right now, is what our options are.
So the COA is specifically regarding leaving the work as it is.
Mhm.
So we need to make a motion on approval or denial of the driveway as it exists, the parking
So-
spot.
I do have a
Then-
question.
but then there could be discussion as to recommendation for alternative material, alternative location, full remove, well, I can't really say full removal. There was a parking spot there.
Just
Right,
removal of the
it
material,
was
the
an-
asphalt.
Drive on the grass parking lot.
Yeah.
Parking spot.
Was there any excavation done to lay that?
Yes,
And was there
you
anything
can
in
see
the
it in
place?
the pictures. They excavated the grass away. They
No,
pulled
they
up a
didn't.
railroad tie from the neighbor's side.
I have a
You can see
copy
the
of what
picture?
he,
Okay, I'm not here to debate that part, but
what he did. This is what he said. I was not there, but that's what he said.
I think you would have to excavate to lay asphalt.
right.
Or any
I
type
was
of-
surprised they didn't put down gravel, they put it on dirt. And you can see by the thickness of the sidewalk, it wasn't that
Well, it's
thick.
gonna be cracked up in 5 years.
Right.
Other than it just saying
And then we'll be
it's
here again
re-
with
That
the
wasn't
repair.
put on gravel that was left on that dirt.
other than
Or
just saying
ground into that
resurface.
dirt.
I don't.
I'm not
I
an
don't know
asphalt
what it
expert, I
says.
don't
Can't
know.
say. I wasn't there either.
No, unfortunately, I don't know exactly. Heads or tails of it if anyone else wants to see that or
I'll
not.
take a look at that.
And this was done also due to the fact that there are tenants that live there. And in order to,
But I can't bend the guidelines
Right.
per a tenant situation.
But I'm
because there's
just saying that-
turnover and,
in order to keep them from jumping the curb and driving through the grass, was another thought process that we had in order to make this more safe for them.
I also had a tenant who
if this,
had,
if this was before the fact, not after the fact, I would easily be asking you or voting against it. I'm being respectful of the resources you put
And
into it.
I'm just trying to give you all the information I
Sure,
can.
sure.
And, you know, in hindsight, if I'd put concrete there, or if we'd put concrete there, would this be an issue?
If it was approved previously, it wouldn't be an issue.
So it
But
all
putting one in
hinges on
front of the
fact that-
house would have been an issue.
Yeah.
well, I want to tell you one thing too. I had one tenant there that had her car totaled, was hit on Rivermont.
That's part of the
happens.
risk of living on Rivermont. Our next door neighbor was
Happens.
totaled.
Can't control the traffic, unfortunately.
Everything hinges on pre-approval, Fran, so.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry, I didn't know as much as I should have known.
But the reality is, in hindsight, if it had been applied for like this, it would not have met the guidelines and would not have been approved, is the point. That a parking space in the front yard is not per the guidelines, whether it be concrete or asphalt.
So you're saying that to all those people who have driveways
I
in front of
understand
their
that your
house?
intention is
Anyone that's putting one
to
in.
not have driveways in the front of the houses. I understand that.
On the same block, you may have noticed somebody's
It
removed one.
says
But
driveways
it existed.
and parking lots that are new should be located in the side or rear. Doesn't say shall be, it says should be.
Yeah, I'm not an attorney either, but we referenced the
But
guidelines.
I've taken a lot of law classes and property law classes.
Okay,
And shall is more than should.
okay.
And working under the assumption that this driveway existed, should is one thing. When you have
You're
no
working
other
under that
alternative,
assumption. I don't know that we've come to that conclusion.
I understand that, but I'm telling you how we acted in good faith.
Does
And what we
anyone
did
have any
was, we
thoughts
made a
on
decision,
Yeah, if somebody would like to motion.
and now we're finding out that it needed to be approved.
That's always been the case. I don't know when you found out.
When she told me,
Okay. So again, it's been a historic
It's
district
not
since
always
before
been
you
the
bought the
case. When the
house.
houses were built in 1890, nobody had a historic
But since you've
district to
owned
deal
the
with.
house, it's been the case.
When this
Since
house was
before
built,
you owned
nobody
it.
had a historical district to deal with.
Agreed.
So it's not always been the case.
Agreed.
We're just presented with the
Okay.
situation as it is right now.
In your
in front of us.
code, I could not find where it says at a certain date, these guidelines go into effect.
When
Okay.
when it became a historic district is when they went into effect, and that's clearly documented in the guidelines. But either way, we're not here to argue semantics of that
No, and I don't want
point,
to.
so.
I believe you when you tell me that we're not grandfathered. And so now we've got a driveway there, and I'm trying to give the best case for you that it matches everything that we could do to make it compliant, and I'm hoping that you make a good decision.
But the reality is it is not compliant.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, that,
so you'll have to make a decision based on that.
Would someone like to make a motion?
So, I guess I can state my opinion before I do. If we agree that there was a driveway, then I think we're kind of boxed in. I don't like it. If we agree that there was not a driveway, then I think we're unanimous that we wouldn't approve doing it in this manner, in that position and everything else.
there was a driveway.
You mean the
A
parking
spot,
spot?
rather, I'm sorry. The driveway's the neighbors, that's always been there. If there was a spot there, but even then, how do you define it? A car is parked there on occasion, not regularly. Yeah.
Yeah, so I couldn't speak to whether or not there was gravel or if it was just grass or not. I hadn't seen it personally before it was paved.
Right, no, her picture though, I don't know if
Yeah,
you've just seen ruts
it kinda
of
looks
the
like
tires or
they're-
if there's something more.
Right.
That was not, the grass and the tire prints in the grass are not indicative to that lot. That all happened in the last year.
The 2016
Well, that's showing
image,
2012 they were there, but not 2006. It's harder to tell. 2008, it kind of looks grown over. I don't know, there's variations.
There were railroad ties lining the right side of that driveway?
After it was paved, and they peeled it up when they shoveled off the grass prior to laying asphalt.
So that to me tells me that there
So
was
prior
an
to,
established parking spot.
so you're saying prior to that being paved, then if somebody wanted to park in that parking spot, they would have had to hop over an 8-inch tall?
I don't know when he
Railroad
put it
tie?
down, but at some
Probably
point.
Yeah,
something.
There was a previous picture that shows a brown circle in front of the parking spot, and that was a tree that obscured that parking spot for many years. There would be no way to drive around that and park there at the angle that it's in.
Okay.
so if, Michael, your hypothesis is that there was a parking space of some level, repeated use.
Of some frequency, I don't know.
Let me show you this.
I've seen a car there, I've seen a car on the street.
There's a car there.
Yeah, I agree. People park there. It's clear that people park there over time. If people park there and it was a gravel, let's say it was gravel,
It was.
in theory, it could stay as gravel, but in the guidelines, it could not be paved. Is that a true statement, Eve?
That's correct.
We could not approve it as
Or discouraged.
pavement unless it was pavement before.
Correct.
It was tar and gravel.
It was not an asphalt parking space, ma'am.
They shoveled up grass to lay
Yeah,
that.
that's correct.
It was not an asphalt parking space. And if it was there, and we cannot define when it was there, then we cannot make you remove it as a gravel parking space. but we cannot approve an asphalt over top of it. That is not per the guidelines. It's, if that be the case, up and down the entire street, people could just cover their entire front lawns with asphalt and say, I want to park wherever I want to, shut up, go away. And that's why the guidelines are in place. As such, I would be willing to make a motion that the parking space as it existed as a gravel parking space can remain, but as asphalt, a post-installation approval would not be acceptable.
Is there a second?
Before you vote on that, may I comment?
Yeah, we get a second, then there's discussion.
I second
Yes, sir.
that.
Okay.
I would second that. I meant,
Okay.
if there was something there previously, whatever it was can be there, but I would not approve an asphalt.
Right.
Spot.
That's
Yeah.
black and white by the guidelines.
Right.
Now, discussion?
Yes, please.
I'm sorry.
With an asphalt driveway, there's no way we can park there without, with our neighbor's permission. It causes tension there, whatever you want to call it.
I mean, again, you can,
So what I'm asking is, can it be approved as a concrete parking spot?
it would not, impervious would not be, is the difference, impervious versus I think Eve read out of the guidelines, gravel, pea gravel.
Pink gravel's
Brick
okay,
even.
Regular gravel,
Yeah.
like crush and run
Yeah,
at
crush and run
57
is
is
not.
discouraged, right?
Right. But pea gravel,
Concrete.
It does say, see, item C, should be of brick, brown pea gravel, concrete exposed aggregate, or concrete tracks.
Right, those are the acceptable or encouraged materials,
That are
but
not out
then
in
I'm
front of
back
the
to you're in
house.
front of the house, right, where it's at.
Okay, so not only is it just because it's asphalt, it's also because it's in.
Right, and
Right.
respectfully, that's how I started this discussion, was I tried.
Yes, okay. I realize we're going in circles, but it's taken me a while to take it all in.
Sure,
This is not something that I do every day.
sure,
Yeah.
sure.
So I second your motion.
Any other questions, comments, concerns?
Can I
regarding
ask
the
another
motion?
question?
yes, sir.
Please, oh, of course.
As far as concrete runners go, what are the standards for those?
I'm sorry,
Talking
Tracks,
width,
concrete
length?
tracks. Tracks.
parking tracks? Yeah,
Yeah.
again, Pharmacy Arga's comment, new construction like that in the yard is not gonna be concrete. You're gonna be able to, river rock, it's kind of the possibility.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna keep going back and looking for different alternatives. That's
And it's-
the nature
We're
of
not
my
trying to
job.
box you in, we're trying to find something that's acceptable and
The nature of my job is to keep looking.
No, I can't help but think about the safety on Rivermont Avenue. I'm sitting here.
Again,
and
ma'am,
I'm
it
thinking,
is where the house is, that, we cannot change Rivermont Avenue. When buying a house on Rivermont Avenue, that is a part of where you are. I mean, nothing about that is going to change.
but there's no lighting, there's,
So that's a different.
it's a straight
That's
light
a
right next to
different-
your house in the neighbor's yard.
I will note, under policy, it does say, new driveway or parking lot surfaces should be of concrete and brick rather than asphalt. So I don't know
Again,
if
Eve, that's
so I could
driveway
do a
as
brick-
opposed to a yard, in doing the yard.
I could do a brick yard.
Not in the
driveway.
front yard.
No, ma'am.
It's the position of the driveway.
So what would be left if the asphalt was removed? Do they put back
This-
gravel?
Gravel.
And put grass?
Or,
Do they need to approve a new COA to put gravel down?
Pea gravel?
I wouldn't say, I mean, unless
I
in
just
the
wanna make
motion,
sure
it's.
after
Yeah,
we
no,
vote, we
right.
know what's
If-
gonna happen.
It would have to be a pea gravel if something were to be approved. It wouldn't be 57, I forget what it's called.
Right, no,
57.
no.
Question, Ron.
You could,
Nor do we want that.
The motion could be amended to offer that as an alternative, and they could be cut loose and ready to work on
Well, I
that,
think that would
if
be-
that's what we're providing.
That would, in theory, be a COA, administratively approved, if we're acquiescing that there was a parking space there beforehand. Then per the guidelines, pea gravel would be
I
acceptable.
just want to
Right,
clarify
and
that,
that-
because we run into issues where something's been removed, but then someone's then put something else in because it wasn't specified. And it, you know, is another case where it just went off and did something else, so just want to make sure we avoid that, that it's clear after this is settled what the expectation is.
Yeah, well, you can either amend it, leave it as it is.
Yeah, can we restate the motion just so we're
Well-
clear on?
Well, hold on, I think you can either amend it and say that if it's denied, you have to remove it, replace it with this, or it's denied, and then submit
Well, I think it should
an
go.
administrative
COA should go no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah, just,
Sure.
I mean, that's standard operating
Does
procedure.
that need to be for documentation purposes? Eve?
Yeah, so Eve, if I'm remembering, the motion was to deny the after-the-fact approval of an asphalt parking space as installed. And I think that's just straightforward per the application. Secondary action in terms of a replacement would come to you as a COA in the future. And if, as River Rock, in theory, would be approved, given that we as the HPC are acquiescing that there was a parking space there beforehand due to visual evidence.
I think if you wanted to include that as part of your motion now, so that there's less expanse of time between action,
We can,
that's an option,
We
but
can do that.
we can definitely do
and
admin.
so, comma, seeing an existing parking space, not gravel, River Rock could cover the existing parking space location shown by visual evidence.
So, I'm not trying to beat a dead horse here, but if we're gonna acknowledge that a spot was there, I think it looks better to match your neighbor in this case that you're butting up to. I agree, you can't see it
No,
unless
but-
you walk up to it from the road.
But Michael, you're matching something that we have said
Isn't correct.
isn't correct.
I
And therefore, I
acknowledge
can't,
that.
I can't go there
I'm
to
struggling.
match what's wrong.
Yeah.
No, that's not a viable argument, that one should match what's wrong. If we do that,
May I?
the Pandora's
Yeah,
box is
say one
gone.
thing, and then I'll keep quiet. And that is this. When you take in the preponderance of the evidence here on how the rear yard is inaccessible, we could not control what our neighbor has done. And yet we've tried to match it so that it is viable for us to use. Howbeit, we did it incorrectly without coming to the board first. Is there not an exception that can be made in one instance without ruining the whole code?
A valid question, yes. I think the point that we would make that the River Rock is going to give you a situation that you're not going to be tracking mud, which was noted to have been the issue.
It might as well not even be brought up with the neighbor's attitude,
He won't do it.
to my knowledge. He's not here, and I can't speak for him.
Again, not in an effort to prolong this, but I'm reading
Prolong.
I'm reading the guidelines, and it says are discouraged. It's not black and white, there is some discretion there.
Which line are you reading? C.
I think it's like the first page. It might be in what you have there too.
Yep, under C,
Yeah.
the last line.
Again, that's referencing new driveways, is that correct, Michael? And Eve?
The header I see just says driveway and parking lots.
Yeah, that's just for all in general.
again, I don't have to like it, but I'm working with what we're given, and in my opinion, that's a better letting them do what's there, admitting that both of them are incorrect, is a better alternative than mix matching.
Well, I see your point on that, but I also, just to point out, like, if you go further down the guidelines, because it's so specific about position, I think the discouraged part falls under the umbrella of assuming that it's within the correct position. So.
But if we're acknowledging, and I'm not forcing you to acknowledge, if we are acknowledging that there was a spot there,
Mhm.
there was a spot there.
You know what I'm hearing from you?
Please tell me.
Common sense.
Okay, well,
My only point is if,
I don't have to like it, but that's my interpretation.
I'm gonna stick with my motion.
Fair enough.
There's still a second on that?
yeah,
Yeah.
I still second that. I meant.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Yeah.
Nay.
Good job.
2 and 2.
So I believe the motion fails at that point.
I don't know if we can reach a conclusion then with an
Right.
even number of attendees.
Right.
I can make a motion in the opposite, but I think the vote would fall the same.
So do we need to
And
postpone
in
until
that
the
age,
next?
might
what
have to
happens?
This was a first.
Say one thing?
Can it, are you sure?
Is there anything that we can do with the pavement there and how it is right now, in addition, that might help the situation?
Yeah, the earlier question of, do we screen it with?
Ask and answer.
And I'll go back to, just up the street from you is the one that's being torn up right now.
Which was screened.
And that was by that applicant's lawyer. We'll screen it, and it won't, it's up the hill from Rivermont, you can't see it. We'll screen it with shrubs, et cetera, et cetera.
Ask and answer.
They paved the front yard. And that project set up.
But
let me
I'm not
say-
paving
I
the front
understand that.
yard.
And we are
Yes,
not
ma'am.
trying to pave the whole front yard.
Yeah,
That was not
exactly,
our
but
intention.
yes,
Any portion of it.
the front yard was
Any portion
paved.
of it, yeah.
That's a given. The front yard is paved, the picture
That's
shows.
no pavement.
I
You are
wish you
correct.
could see it.
I drive by it
We do
every
see
day,
it.
man.
Go up there and look
I
at it.
drive by it every day. I come to work up in Rivermont every day. So-
I've seen it myself. I don't like it, but
We live-
I'm using what I'm given, and
I mean, actually, all three of these people live on Rivermont Avenue. All four of us go by it daily.
We all deal with the traffic, and we all deal with
Yeah,
parking and.
That's the case. So, again, Eve, if we have deadlocked and given a potential second deadlock, does it get tabled until there is a odd number? Or what is the administrative step that we have not had to have before?
You could motion to table it until there's more numbers here.
I think in fairness to those others that are present, that might be the best way to move forward so that we are respectful of everyone's time. I'm not trying to bring you back another month, but I don't know another way to reach a solution today.
But at the same time, there was not a motion that says remove it today. So that's a,
Right.
So if it is tabled, does that bring us back at each meeting or just when you're ready?
Next
On the
month.
very
Is that
next
what you're
meeting.
saying?
It just
The
could,
very
it
next
it goes
meeting.
back to next month when we have additional commissioners.
hopefully.
Hopefully an odd number,
Trust.
right?
Okay.
Yeah. We'll just maybe need to reach out to everybody that wasn't here and tell them to make certain they do their homework. We don't want to have to rehash this again. They can read the minutes and
Yep.
make sure that they've caught up to speed.
So do you need a motion for that?
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion to table this application until June's meeting.
I will second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
That's it.
Okay. Just to make sure. All right, very good.
Thank you
Well-
all for being so
Yeah, well, thank you for your time.
long-suffering with us, I
And,
guess.
We'll work our way through it and come up with.
We certainly appreciate that.
Absolutely. Let's see, yes.
Just, not to be questioned now.
Yeah, we can have the
Right,
speaker
right,
back.
that's a good question.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next up, 1370 Rivermont Avenue. If there's
So I
any-
received an email from the applicant this weekend asking if we could possibly table this item so that they could be in attendance. They had some medical concerns, so they weren't able to make it to this meeting.
Okay,
I told them that I would leave it on the agenda since it is after the fact and since you all are supposed to review applications within 45 days of receipt. So it is up to the commission whether or not you would like to table it.
I have a
Yeah,
concern
I don't
with
know
tabling
it.
it.
I don't know it in detail. I would love to hear your.
I was just gonna say, I would have a concern with tabling it, just because I know that the house is gonna be for sale, and once it changes hands, I don't think there's a great track record of things being followed through once new ownership is done, so, I mean, I'd be happy to review it today, but I'm open to hear what you guys think about that.
Well, we put it on the table and let's hear what the advocate has to say, and we can then make a decision
yeah, a
as to
motion
table
can
or
be
not.
made one way or the other after we've looked at it, sure.
So the gravel, I didn't get a chance to see, the parking space, so that's already been installed?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Behind the fence?
Yep.
Okay.
Sure is.
There it is.
Oh, okay.
And that is off of the side street?
Side street. Yeah, the side street kind of goes up, and so you can't even see the
Yeah.
entry of it from the
Yeah.
Rivermont.
So the fence, would that not be a zoning issue in terms of height? Because we had that one on
It
one
is.
last month.
So it is, so if you were to make a motion, I would ask that it be for a 4-foot fence in that style rather than 6 feet. They're gonna have to reduce the height if you approve the style, which they already know.
I struggled with this style a little bit. I kept thinking that it was stockade because of the point, but stockade appears to be much narrower than those boards. So it appears to be, if you bring up that list, the
This is in the-
solid board picket is what I, like I said, because when I first saw the fence itself, I went, oh, stockade. I know we can't do stockade, but then I saw this rendering here, and it appears to be closer to the.
And this is a
solid
page out
board
of the
picket.
guidelines.
No, this is from Google.
Yeah,
Okay.
but there's nothing
The
in
guidelines
the
don't have,
guidelines
yeah, the
about
guidelines say
solid board
stockade
picket.
is not acceptable, but they don't show what, well, they have
Yeah,
that
that one
small
says
one.
stockade
Is not,
is not
yeah,
acceptable, but
that's what's there.
yeah, I liken it to that other style, and that is not showing anywhere saying it's not.
So the pictures show that they have a fence that is too tall per zoning, and that is a stockade, which is against the guidelines. So I think that's pretty clear for me.
Okay, that's your, yeah, so your interpretation is that is a stockade?
Yes,
It looks like it based on the picture in the guidelines.
yes, absolutely, yes, for me.
Yeah.
You as well?
And what was their,
My eyes tell me.
Based on the fence, again, that fence design is what, because originally when I looked at it, I said stockade, no. But then when I saw that there are other forms of that same pointed fence,
but I think we have a pretty much straightforward picture in the guidelines that define this as stockade, for me.
well, for a couple of the pickets, I don't know how wide they are in that in that picture, those boards are actually pretty wide. They're wider than I think but that's just, again, that's my opinion.
So that's the fence part. There was a second part, Eve?
The
Yep,
driveway.
the gravel driveway.
So the gravel's not the correct material.
It's not the correct material, it's not the front yard, it's a side street. Is that change because of its location per the guidelines?
Per the guidelines, I think it's still on that property, so the rules apply, but I'm with you that perhaps there's flexibility if you're coming in off a separate street and you've got a fence in front of it. I don't like the material, but I don't like all the things.
So Eve, again, the guidelines that we just beat till it was dead
Okay, bring them up one more time.
within an inch of its life, talks about river rock, but not, as Michael says, gravel crush and run is number 57, crush and run. So given both of those things, I would, Mr. Chairman, make a motion to not approve the fence as installed, both in terms of style as well as height, referencing zoning. And in terms of the parking, the location, I think, is acceptable, but the material is not per the guidelines.
Great. Is there a second?
Again, referencing river rock.
Yep, I'll second that.
Great. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, we can call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Hearing none opposed, we'll show the motion passes unanimously. And we can immediately go on to the next, 2237 Rivermont Avenue. Hello.
Hi, I'm back.
All right.
You doing, Emmett?
Good,
You were
good.
here last month.
Snuck away the right time.
So this is 2237 Rivermont. It's currently a 7-unit apartment building that we're going through a rezoning application for to make it 10. We have some clarification from city staff that we didn't have last month on a site layout for parking. We're in the rear of the structure with planned mostly, like, because we need the ADA spot, that we're proposing that to be concrete adjacent to the sidewalk, and then the rest be brown pea gravel. To clarify, that little triangle in the bottom left is sort of how the gravel comes in off the alley. At the current spot, there's a note there to restore that to grass. So that won't be gravel anymore. And that's really the extent of it. It'll be screened with landscaping per zoning on the sides we have, and then in the back other than where the drive is.
It's pretty straightforward to me.
Sure. Would like to make a motion?
Yeah, I'd make a motion to approve as submitted.
I would second that.
Any other questions, comments?
You see anything that I don't? You're saying it's all pea gravel except the
Except the sidewalk and the handicap spot, yeah.
What's that?
I'm just thinking of loopholes. Sorry.
Anything else that's on there? No, I guess it covers it all then.
Where was the sidewalk located?
Along the back of the structure, and then we'll probably turn the corner on the right side of the building. There's a door, there's 2 doors that are behind the bays.
Okay.
All right. Any other comments? No? All those in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
None opposed? Pass unanimous. Thanks.
Have a good night.
Yes, you as well. Looks like 209 East Street has been stricken from the
Yes, she
Jenna?
she emailed to withdraw her application and said she would like to rethink some things.
2627 Old Forest Road? Hello.
Hey. How are y'all doing this
Very
evening?
good.
Evening yet. Still afternoon,
ju-
come on.
just-
Not evening
For
yet.
the record, if you would just state your name and
Oh,
address.
yes, my name is Bobby Harris, or my legal name is George Robert Harris.
Great.
Address?
Just so they have that.
Yeah, sure. So I, I'm the owner at 2627 Old Forest Road, the Locust Thicket, where we are renovating and rehabbing to move meanwhile back on the farm over there. Learning curve as well. So I took down a shed that was on the property, and I filled in a old well, dry well. It's full of trash. So I'm learning my lessons here. So coming to
So this is the shed you took down, is that right?
that's correct. Yep.
I think that's original.
No, I don't consider that contributing. The other one that we spoke about is.
I think the fridge.
That's from the rest
I
of it.
mean, it was really good looking, so I don't. But I do apologize. I'm actually learning all sorts of lessons about how all this stuff works. So
And Eve, the well can you define that for us?
So that is what the last picture that I have of the well was from 2014. That's what it looked like. And it was primarily underground structure. There was nothing on top of it.
Pretty cool.
it was cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll
That's
be
why that
honest.
box was built
Right.
over top of it,
Right.
had the little fence, that right
Okay.
there, to prevent.
So this is 2014. when it
Unfortunate
was
event.
So
published.
there's no historic documentation, Eve, of that there was a well house or
I mean,
wellhead?
I'm sure at one point there probably was, but
One would assume.
there hasn't been, in aerials, there wasn't any evidence. And then in 2014, a previous owner applied, they submitted a COA application to construct something that would be historically compatible, but then they withdrew the application and nothing happened with it, so I'm not sure what happened there.
Any way it could be worked into your world with a cute little folly?
This is what it looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
been,
It's
But you didn't dig it up and throw it away.
no,
So
we
it's,
just filled it in.
With,
filled and
with what?
covered over.
With what?
What did you fill it with? Sorry.
Bricks.
Oh, my.
Bricks and dirt.
Okay. That'd be quite the excavation.
sounds like an opportunity for you, though.
It doesn't sound like an opportunity. What's wrong with bricks? I mean, that's clean fill. I mean,
No,
other than it's in a well that's.
I don't think
No,
the.
just the historical nature of it.
Exactly, that
Oh, okay.
there's what appears to be cobblestone structure there is obviously of historic significance.
I mean, I'll be perfectly honest, we looked at it and it was, there's no water in it. There was no water in it, and we just said, this is just a liability. I mean, the neighborhood kid's gonna fall in there, or.
Yeah, you definitely don't want
Covered, I would
to
imagine.
have
Yeah.
although there looks.
But even if you
a
did
bottom
that
too.
thing with you could still,
But I think you'd still want to,
it'd have to be fully.
from a liability standpoint, I
Yeah,
think you
okay.
probably want to seal it
You'd have to have about
at
a
some
400
level, you know.
400-pound cap sitting on top of it, but I would
Or even that.
much rather see
Even
that
that
than
there's a
fill.
2-foot down seat, it's filled to within 2 feet of the top. And then there's a seal, that could be concrete, so that there's gonna be nobody going down from a liability standpoint.
You mean fill the whole thing in until 2 feet?
So that one could still see and interpret the
Oh,
existing element there.
okay.
And then whether there's some sort of wellhead, who knows that it was the magic well with a roll-up bucket. In theory, there was something there to bring water up at some point in time. It just,
Certainly would be good.
if in your landscape and in your interpretive narrative of your property, I mean, the house is there and is from X date, and sitting on the property right out there is the well that was from its
I
earliest
certainly see what
days,
you're-
kind of thing. I would love for you to go, man, we'll spend $500 and do something.
Just how, having been over there and knowing that that is just grass yard up to that fence line, which it's amazing how close that well was to the fence between the two properties. How much soil has been put over there? Did you all grade over like 2 feet of soil in that whole
No.
area, or just kind
No.
of skimmed it in
Yeah,
grass?
I would say it's skimmed, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't think that there's a lot of
It
material.
wouldn't take a track hoe to uncover it.
I mean, you'd still probably carefully use one.
I think
Yes.
carefully shovels more likely would be the
Yeah,
better.
shovel's definitely more careful.
Gosh, and you'd even screen the view to the non-historic neighbor
Well,
with
yeah.
the new element.
We're gonna bring in a lot of mature trees and landscaping to replace what was taken out, because it was.
So clearly you can't plant something right there, because it's not gonna
Oh,
grow, it's
yeah,
not
I
gonna
mean, a
grow
tree
in a
may not
stone
take
well
right-
filled with brick.
Yeah,
So you can't plant something right there anyway.
well, that's true. I mean, you could come to, we were gonna do kind of a staggered row of
Yeah.
green biddies, magnolias,
Let's see where I'm
dogwoods.
going here.
We've got a landscape design. I'm with you. I'm with you. And I understand that
Yeah,
I definitely did what I shouldn't have done.
I don't have an issue at all with the shed,
Right, agreed.
talking
Yeah.
along the table. That clearly is non-historic in any way, shape, or form. It might be a spot that was back in the day, but that element is pretty darn significant. I mean, from a
Historical
interpreting
element.
the history of the property,
Mhm.
that guy is very important to that. And I would encourage you to see the possibility of it.
No, I
being a
don't want
part
you
of
to
the
think that
narrative.
I don't appreciate the historic nature. It's one of the reasons that we bought it,
Yeah, I
In
mean,
fact,
it-
I've had guys over there repairing the stone wall around the cemetery, which, again, I don't know if should be having approval to restack stones that are fallen. That's another thing that,
No, not
That
necessarily.
sounds administrative.
so,
Yeah,
even if
you
it's
should
in-
apply for any work on the exterior that you're doing,
Okay.
but certain things like that can be
Just
administratively.
repairing in
Just-
kind what's there.
I got
It's
you.
not for us to
You've done a
see.
great job. You should
Yeah.
go over there and see the cemetery. But
Yeah, yeah. I'd just, I mean, without emotion, I'd encourage you to jump on board it being a piece of your history and being able to really tell a sweet story. Yeah,
Mhm.
I went to a seminar one time for historic theaters, and it was a fundraising seminar. And the person standing on the stage said, "I want you to raise your hand if your theater has a ghost." 5% did. And he said, "I encourage all the rest of you to find one, because it's one of the best fundraising tools you'll ever have, to tell this story and have people come." So, there's what story that could tell with a little bit of research, narrative, could be a part of your whole, I'm assuming your cemetery is going to be a part of your narrative.
Yeah, I think I don't know that how I market that with, bags and
Agreed.
cemetery out there, but it is definitely our intention. We aim to preserve.
Yeah, you're
that
a
aspect
historic
of it.
site.
I, as an oversight, kind of didn't see a visual significance to that whole, and how it was presented to me from the previous owner. I was just like, oh, this is just a dry hole in the ground,
Yeah.
but as a marker
Yeah.
of what was, I certainly understand your position.
When this was a historic site, when there was no city water running to it,
Oh, yeah,
that
for sure.
that little hole in the ground was pretty stinking important
Yeah, absolutely.
for that farm.
Yeah.
in that,
I understand.
that house, so
I do. So I certainly, like I said,
I'd like to make a motion to approve removal of the shed and to table an action on the well, allowing the owner to come back with their approach for its interpretation.
somewhere.
You come back and say, look, we're gonna have a sign here. I mean, maybe it never had a building on top of it.
Okay.
And we're gonna fill it to a point, but at least the stones should be visible. And there should somewhere
Doesn't have
be
to be
work.
12 feet down,
No.
but
Yeah, I mean, so that an 18-month-old falls in it, you can still pick them up by their hand.
It can be, it can be preserved so that the intention of, oh, we know what this was, but without
As opposed to
putting life and limb at
As opposed to
risk.
buried in the ground, that just, I mean, it would be like burying your cemetery. I mean, we don't need to know what the cemetery is over there. Let's just skim it with dirt and,
Well, yeah,
I mean, it's kind of the same, a little different, but kind of the same.
More historic
Little more,
significance to
but-
Major Scott buried
Yeah,
in their front
yeah,
yard.
but kind of the same, but as a part of the whole of the
I
site.
understand, I totally do.
Yeah.
So
So that's
I'll try and.
my motion.
There, well, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. I'll open up for discussion. I did have one of the items that was also listed on the site plan that we received from, meanwhile, back at the farm.
Mhm.
There is denoted on here an existing ice well.
Yeah, and I spoke to Eve about that. I have no earthly idea if it was there.
Uh-huh.
I mean, there was no evidence of it.
Yeah, I couldn't see anything
I
either
mean-
at this point because, and I don't remember, were we provided photos of that aspect as well?
I didn't find any photos in the hard copy files. I didn't find any photos of that in any of DHR's documentation.
How about the previous?
Nobody has provided me
You didn't
any
have that.
documentation as to
I know
what,
that you had asked about that and
Yeah.
there wasn't anything that came through,
but yeah.
yeah,
The only thing that I could find was that it was a primarily underground
Mhm.
structure of large size, but I don't know what it looked like on the surface.
Yeah, again, I don't know if that's it's partial fault to me. I had Draper Aiden help me with the site plan. And unfortunately, but it's kind of a two-part deal there. We just adopted a lot of the language that was already existing from Paul Hughes, the previous owner, where I should have, said, okay.
Take that note off.
Well, not to skirt something that is historically important, but just because we didn't see one. So like, those things in this instance are just kind of creating an issue.
Right. Yeah, I'm
a
trying to, I mean,
clarification issue.
yeah, I want to say that usually probably between 8 and 10 foot square, 4 to 5 feet below grade, and it would have been made of the same stone that you would have found in the well. Is
Right.
what it is.
Built into
And then it would have had a little, almost like if you looked at it from the outside, it would have looked like a tiny lean-to built
Right.
over the top of it, and you would have stepped down into it and
So
stored your cold
my-
storage
my-
items.
Family's farm in Coleman Falls, at least this is what we've been told, but there's a big depression in the ground where one once was, and they maybe had it dug back into the ground a little
Yeah.
bit. But I mean, it looks like a asteroid hit the,
Right.
where it was. And I, with all honesty, will tell you right now, I didn't see anything out
Yeah,
there.
I
that
mean,
even-
it could have been grown over
The
the year
mold.
without the structure on top of it. Decades of rain and everything else. I mean, that surface around it would have just allowed grass and dirt to permeate into it and cover it up. You might not have ever seen it. It might just look like like you say, a small depression, which is unfortunate that it wasn't preserved way back. But then again, I think that property was in no man's land for a very long time. How about, does anyone have any?
In a second.
Yeah. Does anyone have any discussion with regard to
I hope that's,
the locust thicket, of which the
I hope that motion
property was
is,
named for?
palatable to you?
Sorry,
It's my motion of,
I
give it some thought.
I understand,
Ripped
yes,
up, I mean,
sir.
we don't have any purview over it really, but,
Yeah, and I'm ignoring the ice well because it wasn't a part of the submission, as I understand it.
right.
What were we discussing?
Yeah, I'm saying the ice well is a non-issue
Oh,
for, since it wasn't a part of the submission for us.
Right. Yep. So all we were dealing with specifically was the well, which hopefully we'll see
In the building.
some, yes,
Yeah.
of course.
yeah. Well, I mean, I hope otherwise what we're doing is pleasing over there. I know it's not, there's change going on, you know,
Right.
but I think it's good. But that's also in the eye of the beholder, you know, so.
So the big area that's cleared behind it, is
Mhm.
that you all?
Well, then there's
Oh,
the
no,
development going on.
Yeah, there's a development back,
Yeah.
it seems like that's not a part of you.
That's not me.
Yeah,
So
that's-
Confederate Avenue separates me from what Ryan Holmes is doing back there.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
I think that is called, the homes at Locust Thicket or something like that. It is a big subdivision though.
Yes. Yeah, like 120 units. back
Stole your name.
They did steal my name, and then people.
Royalties?
Huh. I don't know if that's, I can go after that or not, but, yeah, it's,
Okay, sorry.
Okay, regarding this COA specifically, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Hearing none opposed?
so that puts me back on an agenda, correct?
Please.
That's fine.
Don't, would there be an absolute for next month, or could that?
Yeah,
Do I need to apply?
no, you don't need to submit another application, just any materials you would like to share with the commission, for your ideas.
I'm gonna get out there with a shovel first. See what we have.
Pressure washer.
Yeah.
And I'll send a deadline date for that, with your COA for the shed.
What does that mean?
So all materials have to be submitted for the next meeting by a certain date, but I can't remember that date off the top of my head.
Wait, for the shed?
No, for the well,
Oh, okay.
sorry.
It's 2 weeks before the meeting, isn't it?
15 days,
Something like that,
and I think
so-
the next meeting is the 27th. Since we have that third Monday off, it'll be pushed to the fourth Monday.
So about the 12th.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's right.
Will you be sending me an email?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate y'all,
Absolutely.
and I'll be certain to check with y'all. Moving forward.
Thanks for being.
Yes, sir. All right, thank y'all. Have a good evening.
Yes, sir. Next up, one action item on old business, 1021 Harrison Street.
Hey, I'm Josh Klein. I think James was supposed to be here, but he's my business partner.
Yes.
All right, let's see here. Here's the updates. So we're talking about the front windows, is that right?
No, you've already received approval for the front windows.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so
Rear
we
and
need to
side.
discuss side and rear.
So if you drive by, just so everybody's aware, if you drive by that house right now, the front windows, it's being worked on. We're repairing the front porch now, and there was a lot more water damage to the, it's been a Monday, to the hidden gutter system. There we go.
Right.
There was a lot more water damage there than we expected. We thought the damage was isolated to the left side. It went over almost to the middle of the porch now, so we've had to do more work there. That should be done by the end of the week. I was talking to the contractor earlier today. And then next is the front windows. I have found somebody that can repair the counterweights and build new tracks on the front. So if anybody goes by there and notices that their wood windows are not in there yet, that's why, that's next. And then, let's see here, so with the side windows, we've had quite a debacle. That house, that house is unique on that block, right, being a stone house and all, and I kind of think it kind of sticks out, especially all those vines all over it. The lady that bought that house in the 70s, her son inherited that house, and I think she died in 2011, if my memory serves me correct. And there was very little maintenance done on that house, preventative or otherwise. So there was the hidden gutter was stopped up on the, like if we're looking at the house on the street on the left side, the hidden gutter was stopped up to the point that it was leaking inside, and where that, forgive me, I'm not an architect either, but where the windows upstairs kind of jut out a little bit, the water had drained right there in the windowsill. So when those windows were originally, when we bought the house, I tried to close one of them, and the frame completely disintegrated because the spring action from the counterweight or whatever's in there.
Is it a bay window? I'm trying to remember the picture.
Yeah, it's not a, it looks like, so the one on the side looks like that one up there on the second story. It's a series of 3 windows that kind of juts out, whatever the proper term for that.
They're not all in a line, there are 2 that are angled and then one that's
They are in
opposite.
alignment, it
Oh,
just,
okay, it's just a bump out then?
yeah, but there you go.
A dormer.
Gotcha.
So
Yeah.
with those, I've had 4 or 5 different people that I deem qualified. The guy that owns Bailey Spencer Hardware downtown, he's a good resource for all things architectural salvage. And he recommended a few guys to us. We've all had come out there and look, and they're saying that that the frames of those windows are not able to be repaired. The windows themselves we have out. I think the frame of the window is pretty simple because the ones on the side were not a grid. They weren't that grid pattern at all. They were just plain windows. And then one guy was like, "Well, you could screw them shut, but when this house is ready to be sold, if a window doesn't open, it's gonna have to open for a loan appraiser, right?"
And for it to be a bedroom,
Yeah.
it's kind of required.
Yeah, there has to be an egress, right?
Yeah.
Well, when he said screw 'em shut, I was like, well, I mean, that's one thing, but I don't think that's enough.
Don't go there.
I don't want to. We talked to a rep from Pella, I think it was Pella Windows, for wood windows for the side, and he came out, we took measurements, all this stuff, and he was like, if we get you anything, it's gonna be, 6 to 8 to 12 months. I'm like, yeah, it's not gonna work.
Welcome to the world of crazy.
So, well, and he, he says that, the manufacturer isn't the problem, because I had said, well, if there's something you have in stock that is larger than that, maybe I could have. There's a guy at Bailey Spencer that's he actually rebuilt that front door that the police went through. And he did an amazing job, so my conversation with Pella was, could we take these wood windows maybe that you have that are larger, and I could have someone mill them down or what have you? And he's like, yeah, it don't work like that. Okay. So, yeah, there's where we are. I expect, what is this, the 16th? I would say hopefully by the end of the month, we'll have the ones on the front done. And then I'm not giving up hope to source ones for the side, but I mean, everybody that I've talked to, nobody can get them.
So in looking at the action item, it's reconstruct, repair, or replace. Reconstruct seems out, repair seems out because they are, like you say, they disintegrate when you touch them, based on your analysis and what the folks that you've had look at it are saying. Replacement, they're telling you upwards of a year. What other alternatives are you
I think other
considering?
manufacturers, like, besides Pella, look at what other ones are there. I mean, they don't have to be, they can be vinyl clad wood, if I'm remembering the guidelines correctly. Is that metal clad wood?
Metal clad wood.
Is that the right term?
That's right. On the sides. Write this down. Or the aluminum clad wood, I forget exactly how it's worded as well.
It's aluminum.
The metal clad wood, okay.
I think you may be right, Eve, aluminum clad.
The installation of baked enamel extruded aluminum windows may be acceptable. If
Yeah,
aluminum windows are applied, they should match historic wood windows as closely as possible.
Yeah, so it's basically a wood window that has an aluminum extruded profile on the outside to give you better performance over
Right,
time.
energy efficiency.
The biggie is that they are historic profiles. I mean, you can get those that are just chunky monkeys that, they're very clearly and very modern and don't fit into a historic neighborhood. So you want the thin profile. A window manufacturer that is talking about historic districts with their materials. And there's enough, Pella makes them, Marvin makes them.
That's what my next question.
There's a number of them out there that make those. And those would be acceptable in terms of replacement, since the originals are basically deteriorated to a point of non-repair.
Yeah, and that, okay. And
We've also approved a PVC window. It was new to us when submitted that we
Oh.
found other historic areas in Virginia had approved.
Okay.
I don't, that's
Yeah,
about as much as
not
I can tell
vinyl.
you.
Right,
Right.
right. Some sort of
But PVC.
cellulose or something, was it not?
Cellular, I don't remember.
But again,
Yeah.
the dimensional profiles are the important part there as well.
Okay.
That it's not a big old chunky guy that fits. So, certainly those side windows in any of those vocabularies that match the guidelines would be acceptable, that you can find. These days, supply chain is crazy.
If I'd known last year, materials and stuff were, the kitchen right now in that house is being held up because they don't have hinge clips. There's no ETA for hinge clip. I would not have taken this on if I'd known that.
Yeah, it's
So we spoke to those.
the wild, wild west.
The three very poor windows on that side. Are there any others that are further down on that same side or on the left that are salvageable, did they say? Or was that all they were looking at, were those three?
That's the ones they were focused on, were those
Okay.
three. There's one in the, but this is, when you're looking, if you're looking at the house, there's a window that sits right, if this is the street view, there's a window that sits right here at the very, very back. That one was also, it was a lot of termite damage. This window right here in the kitchen, and there's one right over here on the other corner. Those were, those are as rear facing as they can be.
Right.
If you're getting a package for the sides, and you add those in, a few more quantity by the same manufacturer, you may have better delivery schedule than if you're buying from two different companies and piecemeal in smaller numbers.
Yeah. And this might be something that we need to do administratively, but we were stripping down the layers of paint off that front door, and I'm guessing when that door was built, there was no such, well, I'm sure people weren't painting doors gray, but the original, there's a really dark wood finish that was on the exterior of the door.
That's
I
where
feel
I
like
was-
would be more historically appropriate than the gray that was on it whenever that 70s or 80s, whenever that was painted. The approval that we have for the color of the door is what was on there in that picture. But now that we've discovered what the original color of the wood was, can we change that administrative approval to stain the outside of the door as opposed to painting it that gray?
You'll need to reapply,
Is that just what?
and submit, kind of what that
Application.
stain looks like, yeah.
Yeah, I've got a couple places that it looks.
Would seem to be appropriate.
So keep me honest, Steve, a general rule of thumb, if you're changing a color, a material, a profile, then it won't be administratively approved. If you're putting white on white or gray on gray or the same thing of the same make and the same material and design, then most often it can be.
Okay, I understand. Okay.
So
We can do that. I just think and we're already so far into that. We're a year
So if he
into
already
this.
has an approval for a color, but if they've stripped down to the original and found stain, would that fit into administrative in your view?
it's changing what was there most recently.
I guess most recently.
But if it's going back to the original, I think, isn't there a caveat in the guidelines that says if you're going back to the original, regardless of what was in place recently, that you can do that, or?
I don't know of the caveat, I
Okay.
think it's how we lean,
Okay.
but I don't know of a
Okay.
clause in there that
Whether or
says
not
that.
it matters, it looks almost like it was just that wood on that door is oak, and it looks like it was just, to me, and I'm sure over the years it's weathered, but it looks almost as if it was just natural with.
Again, if you're coming back for window stuff anyway, roll the door into it, you're gonna be here no matter what, whichever way. I think
Yeah.
it would be well received.
Okay.
My word.
I think it looked
When I'm
better
looking
on-
at what's in front of me, which is what we're here to vote on, I don't know that we have enough information, speaking for myself, that we have enough information to vote if you don't know the type of window that you're going to put in, and you haven't shown me a design that I can say, yes, this fits, or
Right.
no, this doesn't.
Right.
I don't want to take your role here, but I don't know how to move
No,
forward.
I would agree with you. I think, if, we can go back and look at other manufacturers that might have a shorter lead time. Hopefully, or.
Although at least I think we're hearing it's gonna be replace as opposed to reconstruct repair
Right.
because of the conditions.
Sounds that way.
So,
And this is all the windows on the side and the rear, or is any of them salvageable? I think this was the issue that we had last month, we
Yeah.
weren't sure what was
The-
salvageable, what
I
was
think the
not,
ones- I
what
can
it was being
almost be-
replaced
I
with.
wasn't here last month, so.
Also, the commission does have to make a decision due to the 60-day time limit, so we can't table for more information again, unfortunately.
So we can shoot this one down and he can resubmit when he has more information? Is that
Right, you could do that, or you could approve the reconstruct repair, even though, if anything is salvageable, they could put that in, and then they could reapply
Something,
when they have replacement information.
yes.
Just so there is a way forward, just in
Right.
case they don't come back.
I would also encourage, and we've had folks that have done this in the past, that basically, and it helps us tremendously, I'm sure it would help the owner as well. If you have just sort of a map of, here are the windows, this one's replace, this one's repair, that one's repair, these three are replaced, so on and so
Basically
forth.
identify.
Exactly, and then say, this is what we propose to replace these with, but these ones over here are being repaired, they work. So that's
So
it's
we
helpful.
could do a motion to replace based on what we've heard today, and have a caveat that they must bring back the manufacturer of the replacement window to confirm appropriate profiles?
I think
No,
I would
there
say,
are more.
I would, in theory, make a motion to approve the repairs, and once you've identified what your replacement is, please bring that back to us for review.
I'll second that if that's a motion.
Yeah.
Just strike the in theory part of it. Yeah, I agree with that. Do you have any questions regarding the motion that's on the table? Anyone else have any questions, comments, or
No,
concerns?
go ahead and include your door in that,
Okay.
so we
Yeah.
can.
Yeah,
Yeah,
next
and I'll
time.
snap some pictures, because it looks, I was not expecting that when we stripped paint off. I just didn't want it to look stupid and overpainted.
But at least, like you said, you've got a few folks who have said some of these windows are salvageable. At least they can get the ball rolling on those.
Yes.
Right.
Any parts that can be repaired. Great. All those in favor?
Aye.
Hearing none opposed, I'm sure we'll be seeing you again, and then we'll hopefully plug right through that. Have you on the way. It's a tremendous project, and
Yeah.
applaud
Got
you
that
for
right.
taking that one on.
Well, I bought it because I was like, oh, cool, stone house.
Yeah.
Never again.
Oh, me. All right, thank you so much for being here.
We adjourned?
Well, we are adjourned.